Too many studio owners are relying too heavily on word of mouth marketing to grow their programs, and that causes some very specific problems that most studio owners are not even aware are occurring. And in this quick video, I wanted to just take a moment and talk about what those problems are and what you can do to avoid those problems and kind of push your studio growth through the next plateau. I had the idea to create this video because I was just recently talking to a new studio owner that had come into one of our consulting programs. And as we were talking about the marketing strategies that she'd implemented over the years, she's been in business for a couple of decades and runs a very, very high quality program, and was very proud of the fact that a majority of her current student base had been referred by other students, but was frustrated by the idea that over the years she's had such a hard time pushing through different plateaus and didn't understand why that was the case. Well, that's actually the normal result, the expected result from any business, but especially the dance studio businesses, when they rely too heavily on word of mouth marketing. You see, word of mouth marketing has some interesting problems that come along with it. One of them is this counterintuitive idea that the more students that you have, the better it works, right? There's just more people out there talking about your program. So in other words, the more that you need the word of mouth marketing to work, the less that it works. Because if you only got 40 or 50 students in your studio, enrolled in your studio, you've only got 40 or 50 people out there in your community sort of talking about your programs and bragging about you and bringing new people in. If you have 400, 500, 600 people in your studio, it just simply works 10 times as well. And so that's why many of these studios will hit this equilibrium where there's a certain number of students that are out there kind of talking about their programs, and that can kind of work really well for a while. But then that gets balanced out by the number of students that are quitting, whether they graduate out of the program or they move to a new area or just lose interest or whatever happens. When those two things meet, the word of mouth advertising can't push you through that next plateau. And that presents, one of the problems of word of mouth advertising is that it's going to guarantee that you're going to hit a plateau eventually. But it introduces this idea that scaling word of mouth advertising is really, really difficult to do. In other words, it's really, really hard to get your students either more people to talk to introduce them to new friends so that they can sell it to their new friends, or to give them more excuses to kind of go talk about your program, because eventually they just get burned out on it. Like their contacts and friends and family just don't care anymore about how much they're talking about your program. In other words, if they don't sell them into it, by a certain point over time, it's not going to necessarily sell any better. So scaling it is hard for those two reasons. You need to either give your students more opportunities to talk to the same people or new people to talk to. Both of those obstacles we can overcome. There are strategies that we have to overcome both of those obstacles, but they do take more work than some of the other strategies that we'd recommend that everybody implement first, okay? So that's one problem. The other problem with word of mouth advertising is that by definition, you're not reaching a majority of the people that could potentially become customers for your studio, students for your studio. There is warm traffic and there's cold traffic that's going to come into your studio. Warm traffic being people who already know about you, have heard about you, who might have a friend or a family member that trains with you. And that warm traffic is fairly easy to convert and to sell. And that's what most studios rely on. But a majority of the people that live in your area are part of this cold market, right? Part of this market that doesn't know a lot about your studio, that doesn't have a direct friend or a relative or something training with you. And by definition, word of mouth marketing can't get into a majority of that audience. And we need to find a way to do that in order to push you past that equilibrium plateau that I was talking about a second ago. So because of those problems, we need to make sure that word of mouth marketing is always a piece of our holistic marketing strategy, but it's just a piece. It should not be the number one way that people are finding out about you. And if it is, you're missing out on a much larger section of that pie. In very rare circumstances where you might run some kind of a studio or a program with thousands of students in a very, very small city, a majority of the people in the area may be part of your warm market. But for 95, 99% of all studios that we ever talk to, they're missing out on this giant piece of cold market advertising. So what's the solution to the problem? Well, obviously then the solution to the problem is that we need to find a way to hack into this cold market traffic, into these people that aren't constantly being bombarded with invitations to your recitals and invitations to your intro programs and open houses and those kind of things. How do we get into that? Well, historically, a lot of studios have been trying things like, dancing in the parades, or trying to find ways to put up a booth at the Women's Fitness Festival, or putting up flyers in coffee shops and those kind of things, and hoping that that's going to pull and reach into that market. But as most of you probably have experienced, that usually doesn't bring us as much of good results that we're looking for. And with the digital marketing strategies and tools that we have today at our disposal, there's just no question that that's where studios need to be going, and what they need to be doing, in part for a couple different reasons. Number one is that it helps that we can so effectively target the right people. We can get your offers in front of people that are interested in what it is that you have to offer, that value what it is that you have to offer. And even with word of mouth marketing, we can't sort of guarantee that. We can't do as good of a job of that. There are people in your community that are going to be willing to pay higher tuition rates and commit for longer amounts of time, as long as we get our message in front of them. Okay, so that's step number one, is that we need to leverage some digital marketing strategies that will get your information in front of the cold market, but a targeted segment of the cold market that values what it is that you offer. The second piece is to give them some kind of a low barrier of entry, whether that's an intro program or a studio tour. We're having a lot of success right now with our own studios with paid intro programs, and recommend that that's what people do first of all as they're sort of building their programs and learning these cold market strategies. But the third piece that you need to make sure that you do is that you have some kind of a system that warms that market up, and in a sense indoctrinates them to see how important and valuable what it is that you offer really is going to be to them or to their child if you're in the kids market. And once we do that, then the sales process, the enrollment process, becomes very, very easy. So essentially what we're doing is we're reaching into this very targeted segment of the cold audience, and then we're educating them and turning them into a warm audience, and then enrolling them into our studios. That system just works so much better than what most studios are trying to do, that we need to start a shift, I think, in our industry, where we're no longer just patting ourselves on the back because we feel good about just getting word of mouth referrals into our programs, and that we find a way to focus a little bit better on how good we are at serving that cold market. If what you have is valuable, if what you have helps people to live higher quality lives, hopefully that's true, then you are actually doing your community a disservice by just relying on word of mouth and only reaching into the warm market, because you're missing out on you're allowing the cold market, a majority of the people in your area, to miss out on what it is that you could do for them and how you could help them to live better lives. Okay, so if you'd like to learn more about some of these strategies, if you'd like to talk with our staff a little bit about maybe how we can help you to implement this and have a bigger influence in your community, and of course enroll more students as a result of that, we'd love to chat. If you'll just head over to the website dancestudioconsults.com, you'll be redirected to a little form, and that form has a couple of questions on it. We'd like to know a little bit about your studio and what your goals are, what some of the obstacles are that you're dealing with right now, and then you'll be redirected once you submit that form to a calendar where you can hop on a free phone call with one of our staff members, and they'll have a couple questions for you in addition to what you submitted. Maybe a little bit about more about what specific goals you have and what challenges you're facing in your area, but also how the marketing that you're currently running is working for you or not, and then they'll be able to make some very specific recommendations based on your own set of goals and your own set of challenges. Every studio is different. Every area is different. Every sort of every regional part of the world has its own sort of specific challenges. And we'd love to talk to you a little bit more about how we might be able to help as you're trying to build a business in that very specific area with your very specific personal goals, and how we can help you to reach more of your ideal clients, your ideal students, and how we can help you to have a bigger impact on their lives and the lives of their families. Absolutely no charge for that call. We'd love to spend 30 minutes or so on the phone with you, just kind of giving you a little bit of insight based on your current situation on what you should be doing next to make sure that you can push through those plateaus that we were talking about. Okay, so head over to dancestudioconsult.com, take just a moment, fill out that form, and then you'll have a chance to schedule a call with me or one of my staff members, and we'll be happy to spend some time just chatting with you a little bit about what's holding you back and see if what we have might be a good fit for you as you're trying to push forward. Okay, thanks for paying attention, and we'll talk to you soon.